What they were saying. Don't need paper here.
Yeah, paper.
Yeah.
Yep.
I brought my copy, so I don't have to make you wait.
I think somebody's making it. Still snowing, a little bit.
I wasn't expecting it this morning, it took me a while. We live
Yep.
south of Caledonia ways,
Oh, yeah.
but I have to get on to 37, which is
Cool.
really an interesting place because it's 2-lane area.
Yeah,
It's very slick and there's a ton of cars.
yeah, it's like everywhere right now, I think.
Are you getting kind of used to the grayness?
No, I mean, it's not too different from back home.
Really?
Yeah.
Jesus, I grew up sun almost all the time.
Yeah, there's a good chunk of February and January that are pretty gray in Illinois. But like as long as it's snowing, I don't mind. It's the
Do
great.
you cross country ski and things like that?
I haven't before. Be fun.
We did do that. There's tons of good places,
Yeah.
lots of good trails.
Yeah, there's one that we saw in Seidman Park that looks pretty cool.
Yeah, there's a bunch down back on Lake that are really cool. I don't, we only do that in flat areas, I don't like friction.
Yeah, the hills. Yeah, that tracks. Jeez, jeez. I just realized that's on camera. Enjoy that, guys. Yeah, I can't figure out. What is anyone coming today?
Uh-oh, where's,
Hey,
hi,
how are you guys?
good. How are you?
Good.
Check. We're in the hockey game.
Oh, don't tell me. I wanna watch it.
You know when is,
It was already at 8 this morning.
I was watching,
Oh, you were
well,
watching it?
Dan,
Oh,
he's a hockey player.
Total Olympic people.
Hmm?
We watch the Olympics.
Yeah.
All the time, so that whole Alyssa Liu story.
Yeah.
Very interesting stuff.
I didn't know that either.
Good for her. Wow.
I don't know what this is I'm eating. It's like a croissant cookie.
Totally sweet and perfectly crisp French pastry.
Okay.
Chicken too.
yeah, I don't like knowing every song. My dad calls me the day of when the skate, it was the ice,
Dance.
not the dancers, but the pairs skating. And he calls me, and just before the Chinese couple's gonna go on, I'm watching it in the evening, right? But he apparently had watched it earlier. He calls me and he says, don't, he's like, oh, you gotta watch the Chinese pair. I'm like, yeah, I am, I have them, they're coming on next. Oh, they're gonna win gold. And I'm like, yeah, did you tell me the outcome? And he's like, oh, but I'm like, yeah, what did you do? Thanks a whole lot.
When I left, they're describing one of the players.
Okay, everybody brought their own coffee, right? Aiden knows never how to make that.
Refills.
Well, I had help. I had to find help.
I need to sign it up.
Thank you, Seth. Somebody,
didn't bring coffee, so.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I always bring my own anyway, so it's not.
And I don't even drink coffee. I gotta go get my tea from my car.
I'm checking that now. Oh, yeah, for Dan, and she goes, yes, I can't.
I wonder if I'd pick it up again. Oh, well, let me put those things.
Good to hear about your dog.
Yeah,
That's always fun.
well, she only told the good parts.
Oh.
She made it sound like he always does.
Everything.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is patently false.
Is he really young yet still?
Yeah, he's not even 8 months yet.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you bring him or is he, did you get him here?
We got him here. Yeah, we got him, like 2 days before she started the job.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, I didn't have a job, so I had time to train a lot. Excuse me.
Are you working now? Or?
No, not yet. I'm
Okay.
still looking.
You're supporting.
Yep, I do a lot of housework.
You know what? This is a big deal for her, so the
Yeah.
fact that you're able to do that is great.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely would like to get a job, just financially make things a lot easier, but
Yeah.
it is nice to, have, just I get all the, dishes and the cleaning and
Yeah,
all that stuff done. So,
right.
or at least I try to.
So one of the things, so I was one of the ones that did a lot of the, previous decorating in the house, and the one thing I would have, that backsplash in the kitchen.
Yeah.
It's just, it is just, paper,
Oh, yeah.
Stick,
Yeah.
yeah, so if you wanna tear it down
Oh,
and
no.
put up a real backsplash, go for
I don't,
it.
no.
Cause that's what I wanted to do, but,
No, that is not something that we would ever
oh,
care about.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're just not
Uh-huh,
in decor people.
okay.
Yeah, I'm not in any way,
Much
not in
into-
any way knocking people who are. It's just it would never be a priority for us.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Like if somebody
that's
did it, we'd be cool. Oh yeah, that was great. But I would never I would never make that we should do this.
She can do things at the house and it'll be days or weeks before I even know what it is.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm like, I don't connect.
I'll be honest with you, Judith is worse than I am. If you changed our backsplash, it might take her a week before she noticed. I'm not joking. It takes her 2 days to realize when I get a haircut. Not a joke. Well, Might just be us today. I'm not sure where Ethan and I thought I saw Ethan and Stacy.
Aren't-
Yeah.
And Pam was here too.
Pam has brunch.
Yeah, she had.
Yeah, she's like got her once a month meeting with her girlfriends. So she said she'll be here next week.
Oh. Stand. March 14th.
We'll give it a few minutes and we'll start. Did I see Ethan and Stacy? Were they here today?
So
Hey Josh. Hi.
Ethan and Stacy.
No, thought I saw, for some reason I thought I saw Stacy. Okay, making that up. Recognize that noise.
Because overtime just started.
Win what game?
USA Canada.
Don't.
Right? Oh, that's right.
Don't say what the thoughts were.
It's not over.
It's not a result, yeah.
There's no result yet.
Okay, don't tell me.
Hey, why don't you run?
Okay,
I wanna watch it. I want to see it.
I will say my best. I will do my best to stay quiet, depending on what pops up on my phone.
You missed the thing, so, yeah, for when the skaters, the ice
Get it offside.
pairs
Yeah.
were skating, and, my dad calls me, because I, watch it in the evening, and it's prime time, but he obviously had watched it earlier, and so he calls me just before the Chinese fair were going on, and he says, oh, you gotta watch the Chinese fair. I'm like, yeah, they're coming on right now, they're gonna skate next, he's like, oh, yeah, they skate really good, they kiss the goal. Did you tell me the outcome? Like, and he's like, but I'm like, Dad, I wanna watch it, well, thanks a lot, now I know who wins.
Well, sometimes it's nice to know, then you know who to watch.
No, I don't like that.
I do too.
I can do stress watching, if I care about it, a lot of it.
You know, not to leave, not to get distracted from.
I mean, we both watched that using them,
Really,
the skater with all the hype and all that.
Oh, boy.
Was the quad god?
That was the quad god, yeah, that was tough.
yeah. Talk about, for sure.
He handled it really, really well.
Did you see his skate yesterday?
Yeah, did he?
Yeah, he did a skate for,
Like an exhibition.
Well, I saw that,
exhibition
but
part.
I saw one, what? But it didn't do very many.
No, it
they
wasn't
usually
supposed to be
don't.
for that.
That's just the gala.
It's more artistic.
That's just, that's the gala, but it's.
They don't even judge that, it's just.
No.
But I thought it's a quad guy.
Let's see.
Fair. Just 7 in a row.
But I mean,
He did do a backflip, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did do one in back.
Those are legal in competition now,
No,
right?
they're legal again.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
They just don't count for anything.
Oh,
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't think they get any score for it. Yeah, but you can do it now, because for a while, yeah.
they can do it.
Yeah.
I would immediately break my
I
neck.
can't even
Yeah.
hardly skate.
I used to be able to do a backflip, and that is about 23 years ago. Yeah, I think I hit about 22 and stopped doing that. Yeah.
So I don't think it's me.
Is there anyone else that we saw at church we think might still be coming?
No, that's there.
Tim was upstairs.
And Chuck and Barb Chuck can't come for a little while until he gets his car fixed because they have one car right now. So he's like, Barb would just have to sit for an hour. So we'll just start. Who all read some of the deliberation?
A little bit.
Okay.
A little bit.
Yeah, that's okay.
We're going to read the second chapter too, though, right?
What?
We were supposed to read the second chapter too,
Yeah, the side by side.
God, there's a good line in there. where
There's a lot of good lines in there.
They wondered why You didn't just say that.
All right, so this is these three deliberations. I had you guys read one, but we're gonna kind of cover a big chunk, all the ones that have you that are about the you shall love the neighbor as yourself. So it's part 2A, part 2B, and part 2C. And I think it's you shall love the neighbor, you shall love the neighbor, and you shall love the neighbor. So this chunk is kind of unique to the book. It's really important. It's got a specific, he's trying to do not one, but he's trying to do a set of very specific things in advance of what he's going to do in the rest of all of his deliberations. So the basic, the obvious basic point of these deliberations is the obligation and the duty of love. He's trying to impress upon us the fact that that love is not preference. It's not in any way preferential. That I don't just get to choose who who is my neighbor. I don't get to choose whether or not I have to love the neighbor. I don't get to choose whether loving the neighbor is a part of who I am. All he wants is Kierkegaard is doing something he does a lot, and I think by now we've done enough Kierkegaard. We can recognize some of his patterns, which is he's going to make it really weighty before he makes it lighthearted and easy. But he wants to impress that difficulty and that stringent, clear idea of what that bar is. And I'm pulling this from another scholar's work. Just so what is the status of the second deliberation? It serves the purpose of setting out the indispensable terms for the entire discussion, the nature, object, and subject of obligation. Provides a distinctive and separable context for discussion, that is, a context in which the rules are given, the outline is drawn, the space in which love will later concretely be described. And I don't know if you'll notice that in some of what you read, but a lot of this three-part deliberation, you kind of find yourself being like, yeah, but what does that actually look like? And he's not doing that yet. A lot of people read it and come away thinking, oh, it's just this otherworldly. He's just got this pie in the sky. Oh, loving the neighbor is just in my head idea. But that's because he's doing the part in the head first. He wants you to get your understanding of this correct before we go on to actually doing these things. He says, she also says, underlying all these concerns is a fundamental question about abstraction and concreteness in an ethic. How to secure attention to what is distinctive about someone without jeopardizing impartiality, how to combine equality and equal concrete moral concern, or in another idiom, how to ensure appreciation of genuine alterity, otherness, the radical, non-reducible otherness of the other, without either succumbing to abstraction or losing sight of the relevance of commonality. So jump ahead to the actual text. So makes me scroll up every time. So at the very start of 2A, and just to go really quickly, the three different where's my table of contents here? Good gracious. So yeah, the three different the A, B, and C. Yeah, we'll just go through it together. I'm just gonna read some things and then talk for a little bit, and then we'll kind of come together and wrap up with what is actually going on. Thanks, Josh.
Yes. They want you to get spoiled. I heard him talking.
So one of the things that Kierkegaard does right off the bat is say that it has this long discussion of whether or not we should love the neighbor more than ourselves or as ourselves, and he kind of puts it in some historical context. Aristotle says we love the neighbor as ourselves, or says we love the friend like ourselves, which is he's saying not to be denigrated. It's not the idea that that the other is someone that we love preferentially is not a bad thing in and of itself. So the fact that I love my wife differently than I love every other woman in the world is a good thing. But when and it does get confusing at times because he's going to speak against self-love, and then he's going to speak saying that, well, you should have proper self-love, and you just you can get a little confused. Like, wait, does he not like self-love? Does he like self-love? What's going on here? His point is to root out the selfishness in self-love, and the exclusionary part of self-love, the part that says I love, this way or that way, instead of loving the way that I've been directed to love. So that if I'm loving myself properly, then to love the neighbor as myself is the highest, because I'm loving myself in the way that I should love the neighbor. I'm loving the neighbor in the way that I should love myself. And you get this linkiness. So we're going to see that in some of the things that we read from this first one. Therefore, the object of both erotic love and of friendship has preferences named, the beloved, the friend, who is loved in contrast to the whole world. The Christian doctrine, on the contrary, is to love the neighbor, to love the whole human race, all people, even the enemy, and not to make exceptions, neither of preference nor of aversion. There is only one whom a person can, with the truth of eternity, love more than himself, that is God. Therefore, it does not say you should love God as yourself, but says you should love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind. A person should love God unconditionally in obedience and love him in adoration. It is ungodliness if any human being dares to love himself in this way, or dares to love another person in this way, or dares to allow another person to love him in this way. Therefore, as yourself, if the most cunning deceiver who ever lived, or we could make him even more cunning than he ever was, in order, if possible, to get the law to be verbose and to become prolix, for then the deceiver would quickly conquer, would temptingly continue to question the royal law and ask, how shall I love my neighbor? Then the commandment will invariably go on repeating this brief phrase, as yourself. And if any deceiver has deceived himself throughout his whole life by all sorts of prolixities on this subject, eternity will simply confront him with the law's brief phrase, as yourself. Veritably, no one is going to be able to escape the commandment. If it's as yourself presses as hard as possible upon self-love, then in its impertinence, the neighbor is in turn a stipulation that is as perilous to self-love as possible. Self-love itself perceives the impossibility of wriggling out of it. The only escape is the one the Pharisee in his day tried in order to justify himself, to cast doubt on who one's neighbor is, in order to get him out of one's life, and that is to ask, who is my neighbor? So, well, one more, actually, real quick. Who then is one's neighbor? The word is obviously derived from nearest. Thus, the neighbor is the person who is nearer to you than anyone else, yet not in the sense of preferential love. Since to love someone who in the sense of preferential love is nearer than anyone else is self-love. Do not the pagans also do the same? The neighbor then is nearer to you than anyone else. But is he also nearer to you than you are to yourself? No, that he is not. But he's just as near, or he ought to be just as near to you. The concept neighbor is actually the redoubling of your own self. The neighbor is what the thinkers call the other, that by which the selfishness in self-love is to be tested. As far as thought is concerned, the neighbor does not even need to exist. If someone living on a desert island mentally conformed to this commandment, by renouncing self-love, he could be said to love the neighbor. To be sure, the neighbor in itself is a multiplicity, since the neighbor means all people. Yet in another sense, one person is enough in order for you to be able to practice the law. In the selfish sense, in being a self, it is impossible consciously to be two. Self-love must be by itself. Nor does it take three, because if there are two, that is, if there is one person whom you in the Christian sense love as yourself, or in whom you love the neighbor, then you love all people. But what self-love unconditionally cannot endure is redoubling, and the commandments as yourself is a redoubling. The person aflame with erotic love by reason or by virtue of this ardor can by no means bear redoubling, which here would mean to give up the erotic love if the beloved required it. The lover therefore does not love the beloved as himself because he's imposing requirements, but this as yourself expressly contains a requirement on him. Alas, and yet the lover thinks that he loves the other person more than himself. In this way, long section, sorry. In this way, the neighbor comes as close to self-love as possible. If there are only two people, the other person is the neighbor. If there are millions, each of these is the neighbor, who in turn is closer than the friend and the beloved, inasmuch as they, as objects of preference, more or less hold together with the self-loving one. Usually a person is aware of the existence of the neighbor and of his being so close when he thinks he has privileges in relation to him, or is able to claim something from him. If someone with this view asks, who is my neighbor? Then that reply of Christ to the Pharisee will contain an answer only in a singular way, because in the answer to the question, In the answer, the question is actually first turned around, whereby the meaning is how a person is to ask the question. That is, after having told the parable of the merciful Samaritan, Christ says to the Pharisee, "Which of these seems to you to have been the neighbor to the man who'd fallen among robbers?" And the Pharisee answers correctly, "The one who showed mercy on him." That is, by acknowledging your duty, you easily discover who your neighbor is. The Pharisee's answer is contained in Christ's question, which by its form compelled the Pharisee to answer that way. The one to whom I have a duty to is my neighbor, and when I fulfill that duty, I show I am a neighbor. Christ does not speak about knowing the neighbor, but about becoming a neighbor oneself, about showing oneself to be a neighbor just as the Samaritan showed it in his mercy. By this, he did not show that the assaulted man was his neighbor, but that he was the neighbor of the one assaulted. The Levite and the priest were in a stricter sense the victim's neighbor, but they wished to ignore it. The Samaritan, on the other hand, because of prejudice was predisposed to misunderstanding, nevertheless correctly understood that he was a neighbor of the assaulted man. To choose a beloved, to find a friend, yes, this is a complicated business. But one's neighbor is easy to recognize, easy to find if one will personally acknowledge one's duty. The commandment said, "You shall love the neighbor as yourself." But if the commandment is properly understood, it also says the opposite. You shall love yourself in the right way. Therefore, if anyone is unwilling to learn from Christianity to love himself in the right way, he cannot love the neighbor either. He can perhaps hold together with another or a few persons through thick and thin, as it is called, but this is by no means loving the neighbor. To love yourself in the right way and to love the neighbor correspond perfectly to one another. Fundamentally, they are one and the same thing. When the laws as yourself has wrested from you the self-love that Christianity sadly enough must presuppose to be in every human being, then you actually have learned to love yourself. The law is therefore, you shall love yourself in the same way as you love your neighbor when you love him as yourself. Whoever has any knowledge of people will certainly admit that just as often he has wished to be able to help them relinquish self-love, he has also had to wish that it were possible to teach them to love themselves. When the bustler wastes his time and powers in service of futile and consequential pursuits, is this not because he's not learned how to rightly love himself? When the light-minded person throws himself almost like a non-entity into the folly of the moment and makes nothing of it, is this not because he does not know how to love himself rightly? When the depressed person desires to be rid of life, indeed, of himself, is this not because he's unwilling to learn earnestly and rigorously to love himself? When someone surrenders to despair because the world or another person has faithlessly left him betrayed, what then is his fault? His innocent suffering is not referred to here, except not loving himself in the right way. When someone self-tormentingly thinks to do God a service by torturing himself, what is his sin except not willing to love himself in the right way? And if, alas, a person presumptuously lays violent hands upon himself, is not his sin precisely this, that he does not rightly love himself in the sense in which a person ought to love himself? Oh, there's a lot of talk in the world about treachery and faithlessness, and, God help us, it is unfortunately all too true. But still, let us never because of this forget that the most dangerous traitor of all is the one every person has within himself. This treachery, whether it consists in selfishly loving oneself or consists in selfishly not willing to love oneself in the right way, this treachery is admittedly a secret. No cry is raised, as it usually is in the case of treachery and faithlessness. But is it not therefore all the more important that Christianity's doctrine should be brought to mind again and again, that a person shall love his neighbor as himself, that is, as he ought to love himself? The commandment about love for the neighbor therefore speaks in one and the same phrase, as yourself, about this love and about love of oneself. And now the introduction to the discourse ends with what it wishes to make the object of consideration. That is, the commandment about love for the neighbor and about love of oneself becomes synonymous with this, not only through this phrase as yourself, but even more through the phrase you shall. We shall now speak about you shall love, because this is the very mark of Christian love and its distinctive characteristic, that it contains this apparent contradiction. To love is a duty. So in that earlier part, when he's talking about the redoubling, he says, where is it? What self-love unconditionally cannot endure is a redoubling, and the commandments to yourself is a redoubling. the lover therefore does not love the beloved as himself. What he's trying to get across there is that when you love the other in a preferential way or in a way that is not as yourself, you tend to make them an extension of yourself. He's going to go on later to say a lot of our preferential loves are two people becoming one in ways that aren't healthy. And he has a good point later on. He says, even in marriage, I think actually it's either in the book or it's in his journals, but it says in marriage, two become one flesh, but it doesn't say they become one spirit. It is still two different people. We have sex, but we don't join personalities completely. We don't become one being. There's still you. And I read him as that sort of distinction between positive and negative forms of preferential love is really a lot of what he's doing here. And so to put it in the context of something that we all understand, marriage or relationship, in that first part of relationship, you have it's all about you, and not even in an almost innocent way. I have all these feelings, and I'm so overwhelmed with the way that this person makes me feel, and I'm overwhelmed with the way that I want to express my feelings for them, and even the ways that we love in a new relationship I would say tend to be, hey, let me love you in the way that I want to be loved. It's usually what we do. Partially out of just the way that we are, and partially because we don't know them enough well to know how they want to be loved. And for a lot of people's relationships, part of the reasons relationships can go wrong is because they don't get out of that. What you don't do is start treating them like a you. And Kierkegaard says later on, when he's talking about the first I and the second I, but the most important part is with the neighbor, it's you. You start treating them as a separate other person who has a separate set of needs and a separate set of ways they need to be loved and desires, and you stop collapsing them into yourself. And so a lot of what he's trying to get here when he's talking about redoubling is when I love myself, I am not going to love you in the same ways that I love myself, in the sense of what I need, or I'm going to treat you with the same respect and care and concern, and absolute value that I give my own personhood. So he's trying to get you to realize that that preferential love, when it is also informed by neighbor love, is going to be a love that is not treating the other as me, but treating the other as a you in the same way that I treat myself as that level of respect and value and personhood, if that makes any sense. And we can talk more about that, but that's going to be a pretty critical concept when he goes on to a lot of the discourses where he's giving specific concrete ways of loving. Sorry, I know that was a really long section.
So I wanted to say something, but like this whole chapter, this is what now I'm starting to get into, so.
Mhm.
Read this with interest.
Yeah.
A long time ago, I can't even remember what it was, but it's just really. The comment this person made was, the world changed with the birth of Jesus. Totally changed the way it's going to go. But anyway, and the challenge is like how, and the discussion was about, and I was involved in this kind of discussion, the other religions and that kind of things. But wait, this is the one that's based on love, and love your neighbor. And then when you get to this point, you shall love.
Mhm.
It's not like that's an alternative.
Yeah.
So, you shall love. And that's how it changed.
Yeah. And he does compare it a lot the first deliberation, he compares it a lot to, you know, there's the poet. He's always talking about the poets, and when he's talking about the poets, he's talking about, especially really what he means in a lot of specific instances. He's talking about the German Romantics, which is very much the time he grew up in. All these great, I mean, it's the stuff that we get all of our Hallmark cards from. It's German Romanticism. You know, there's this unrequited love. It's where Romeo and Juliet makes a huge coming back because, you know, it fit their unrequited tragic love. You get Kafka, and you get all these different, you know, just, you know, outpourings of what he outpourings of praise for what he would call preferential love. But yeah, the thing he says is, this is all great, you know, this is all fine, and he's also going to say it can go deeply not fine and not great, but that's all that it could all change. You know, you could wake up tomorrow and your beloved could be dead. You could wake up tomorrow and your beloved doesn't love you, and then how are you loving? If you know, how am I loving myself if my entire selfhood is wrapped up in this person who's now rejected me? Now I don't have a self either. No, I can't. And then that's why he's connecting self-love and neighbor love, is that only when it's another aspect of why treating the other as a you is so important, is because, yes, of course, if Judith just, God forbid, stopped loving me or died, like, would it impact me? Of course, I would be devastated. But I would like to believe that my selfhood would not be gone.
An interesting thing about that too, and I think I'm the only one, unfortunately, who speaks to this, but after being married for 45 years, that verse, and you shall become one.
Mm.
Well, the first 6, 7, 8 years, we were very independent people,
Mhm.
but we were learning all this time. And suddenly, when that happened, and nothing's happened to a neighbor of mine, this was long term, but she said, something's happened. We were a we.
Mhm.
Now it's just me, because you literally feel, and I read the one interpretation of the Bible says he took a rib from Adam, and it had to do with the side of Adam.
Mm.
And it almost literally is that. I'm having to learn again
Mhm.
how to be just Lois,
Mhm.
because it was we, and that's why it worked. You know, if you don't get
Yeah.
beyond that, but it's something I would never visualize until it actually happened.
Yeah, and Kierkegaard has absolutely nothing bad to say about that we-ness, so long as you have, you know, selfhood within it. And also is crucial concern for him is that we-ness doesn't lead you to separate from the world. That my love for my wife or my husband doesn't keep me from loving the neighbor, and that preferential love. And so and when I read Kierkegaard, and he's very strenuous, I think that if you ask Kierkegaard, you know, if you and your wife are walking and see someone without a coat, and you're not wearing a coat, but your wife is, you give him your wife's coat. like you care more about the neighbor than you're like, because it's easy for us to be like, oh, I'll give him my coat because I can make that sacrifice. But for me to let my wife go cold at the expense of a neighbor, that would be difficult, more difficult for me than letting myself go cold. And I think that Kierkegaard is making that point. Listen, just because you have these preferential loves, that you have to realize those are subsumed. And I think we a lot of times tend to either sometimes consciously but a lot subconsciously invert the order. That, like, we tend to talk in the church, in a lot of the church, as if, well, family first, love your family first, and then after that, love the neighbor. And Kierkegaard is saying that's nonsense. It has nothing to do with what Jesus is telling us. You love the neighbor first, and then you love your wife and your family. Then you love your husband and your family. It's neighbor first. Neighbor love is the highest form of love. And I think that is, I think it's right. I think it's difficult. I don't like it. I don't like thinking about it. Like this is a lot of the Kierkegaard that I read that I go, thanks, jerk. Like, that's not helpful, because now I have to continuously, you know, every moment think about the fact that I'm not doing that a lot. But yeah, go.
Well, I believe that you have to, and I think he addresses this, but on the level, but that you have to love yourself first before you can love anybody else. And, you know, I just think of those persons who are plagued, if you will, or whatever, by, you know, more, Satan gets in their heads and they have demons and they have, you know, like there's so many different people. I think of the people who have, like, say, committed suicide or so. Like, you know, I think of my friend's son, like he was a wonderful person, and did love others and his family and his neighbor. He was a great person, but then the demons got in his head and suddenly he didn't love self. So it's, that thing, because it's not all, oh, I just love myself and I love, you know, then I love the neighbor, you know, like it just, it's not so sing-songy for everybody. Do you know what I mean?
Yep, yep. And it is true that you cannot love the neighbor unless you love yourself. Kierkegaard is also intentionally, explicitly saying you also can't love yourself if you don't love the neighbor. The two are intertwined inextricably. You cannot love yourself properly if you're not loving the neighbor, because you are going to form a self that is not a self that loves the neighbor, and that's a self that is not loving itself properly. Basically, what he's saying is you can't have a self without other people, and you can't have in the same way that you can't have a proper self without a properly ordered self, like we talked about in Sickness and Death. In the same way that you can't have a self that's not relating to itself in the right way, well, you also can't have a self that's not relating itself properly to others. So what he's saying is that we are interconnectedly reliant upon each other, for our love for God and in our walk with God. And that's, you know, we all know that on a basic level, that like, that's why we go to church, you know, that's why we seek out, you know, friends that help us on our walk. But I think it is really powerful to recognize that, like, this is at the core of our being, in the most deepest psychological and spiritual levels, and he's bringing it out in a way that kind of, once you let that reality of that soak in, this person that I'm talking to is another person who's trying to love the neighbor well, but is also trying to figure out what it's like to become a self, and is doing all of these difficult things. Like, oh, well, that's just like me. Like, you start to see that in others in a way that he's going to get into later, that is, I think, can really help us concretely, not just in this abstract level. We can concretely kind of be a foundation out of which other things are built. This is the second one, part B. So yeah, here it is. So this is that other I, and you stuff. It gets a little Sickness Unto Deathy, but we'll get through it. It will now be shown that passionate preferential love is another form of self-love. Also, that self-denial's love, in contrast, loves the neighbor, whom one shall love. Just as self-love selfishly embraces this one and only self that makes it self-love, so also erotic love's passionate preference selfishly encircles this one and only beloved, and friendship's passionate preference encircles this one and only friend. For this reason, the beloved and the friend are called, remarkably and profoundly to be sure, the other self, the other I, since the neighbor is the other you, or quite precisely, the third party of equality. The other self, the other I. But where does self-love reside? It resides in the I, the self. Would not self-love then also start loving the other I, the other self? One does not really need to be any great judge of human nature in order, with the help of this clue, to make discoveries about erotic love and friendship that are alarming to others and humiliating to oneself. The fire that is in self-love is spontaneous combustion. The I ignites itself by itself. But in erotic love and friendship, in the poetic sense, there's also spontaneous combustion. True enough, we do say that jealousy shows itself very rarely, and then only as sick. But from this, it does not follow that it is not always fundamentally present in erotic love and friendship. Test it. Place as the middle term between the lover and the beloved, the neighbor, whom one shall love. Place as a middle term between two friends, the neighbor, whom one shall love, and you will immediately see jealousy. Yet the neighbor is self-denial's middle term that steps in between self-love's I and I, but also between erotic loves and friendships I and the other I. that it is self-love when an unfaithful person wants to jilt the beloved, wants to leave the friend in the lurch. Paganism also saw, and the poet sees it. But that the devotion with which the lover gives himself to this one and only, indeed clutches the beloved, is self-love. This only Christianity sees. But how can devotion and unlimited giving of oneself be self-love? Indeed, when it is devotion to the other I, the other self. And then I think this is the key part to understand that. Wherever the essentially Christian is, there's also self-denial, which is Christianity's essential form. In order to relate oneself to the essentially Christian, one must first and foremost become sober. But self-denial is the very transformation by which a person becomes sober in the sense of eternity. On the other hand, wherever the essentially Christian is absent, the intoxication of self-esteem is at its peak, and this peak of intoxication is the admired. But erotic love and friendship are the very peak of self-esteem, the I intoxicated with the other I. The more securely one I and another I join to become one I, the more this united I selfishly cuts itself off from everyone else. At the peak of erotic love and friendship, the two actually do become oneself, one I. This is explainable only because in preferential love, there is a natural determinant, drive, inclination, and self-love, which selfishly can unite the two in a new selfish self. The spirit's love, in contrast, takes away from myself all natural determinants of all self-love. Therefore, love for the neighbor cannot make me one with the neighbor in a united self. Love for the neighbor is love between two beings eternally independently determined as spirit. For love for the neighbor is spirit's love, but two spirits are never able to become one in the selfish sense. In erotic love and friendship, the two love each other by virtue of the dissimilarity, or by virtue of the similarity that is based on dissimilarity, as when two friends love each other by virtue of similar customs, characters, occupations, education, etc. That is, on the basis of the similarity by which they are different from other people, or in which they are like each other as different from other people. Therefore, the two can become oneself in a selfish sense. As yet, neither one is spirit's definition of self, and as yet, neither one has learned to love himself Christianly. In erotic love, the I is defined as sensate, psychical, spiritual. The beloved is a sensate, psychical, spiritual specification. In friendship, the I is defined as psychical, spiritual. The friend is a psychical, spiritual specification. It is only in love for the neighbor that the self who loves is defined as spirit purely spiritually, and the neighbor is a purely spiritual specification. Therefore, what was said at the beginning of this discourse does not hold true at all for erotic love and friendship, namely that only one human being acknowledged as the neighbor is needed in order to cure one of self-love, if in that person one loves the neighbor. In the beloved and the friend, it is of course not the neighbor who is loved, but the other I, or the first I once again, but more intensely. Even though self-love is reprehensible, it frequently seems as if a person does not have the strength to be alone in his self-love. Thus, it does not really manifest until the other I is found, and the one I and the other I in this alliance find strength for the self-esteem of self-love. If anyone thinks that by falling in love or finding a friend, a person has learned Christian love, he is in profound error. No, if someone is in love in such a way that the poet would say of him, he really is in love, well, then the love commandment, when it is said to him, can be changed a bit, and yet say the same thing. The love commandment can say to him, love the neighbor as you love the beloved. But does he not love the beloved as himself, as the commandment that speaks of the neighbor commands? Certainly he does. But the beloved he loves as himself is not the neighbor. The beloved is the other I. Whether we speak of the first I or the other I, we do not come a step closer to the neighbor, because the neighbor is the first you. The one whom self-love, in the strictest sense, loves is basically the other I, because the other I is he himself. Yet this is certainly still self-love. But in the same sense, it is self-love to love the other I, who is the beloved or the friend. Almost done. Moreover, just as self-love in the strictest sense has been designated as self-deification, so also erotic love and friendship, as the poet understands it, and with his understanding this love stands or falls, are idol worship. Ultimately, love for God is the decisive factor. From this originates love for the neighbor, but paganism had no inkling of this. It left out God, made erotic love and friendship into love, and abhorred self-love. But the Christian love commandment commands loving God above all else, and then loving the neighbor. In erotic love and friendship, preferential love is the middle term. In love for neighbor, God is the middle term. Love God above all else, and then you love also the neighbor, and in the neighbor, every human being. Only by loving God above all else can one love the neighbor and every other human being. The other human being, this is the neighbor who is the other human being, in the sense that the other human being is every other human being. Understood in that way, the discourse was right when it stated at the beginning that if a person loves a neighbor and one single other human being, then he loves all people. So that's a lot. But the main point I think he's trying to make is, and he shifts, we got a little bit, he shifts over from this to the flip side, but in this part, he's really trying to hammer home, look, don't confuse your preferential loves with neighbor love. He wants you to really get that sense that, hey, I need to do the work of any part of loving the neighbor where I'm really just loving myself means I'm not loving the neighbor. Any part of me that I'm doing it because uh, uh, I want to receive love for this action, or any part where like, oh, I I like I like smart people because I'm smart, and I when I really love my friend who's smart, I'm really loving myself because I just like that about myself, and so anything, it's really easy for me to like what I like about myself and other people. A lot of these ways that he's doing it are just trying to get us to say, hey, let's be real about how much we treat the other person like an extension of myself, and any of that needs to be rooted out. Any of it, and in any way, shape, or form that we find that, we have to root it out. And yeah, that's super, super difficult. But again, this set of discourses is really trying to hammer home how much work there is for us to do, which in one sense is really weighty and really, like, why even start? Like, why even try to live this way if, one, it's so hard that we're going to fail constantly, and two, it's just so difficult that it doesn't make me doesn't it's not encouraging. I don't get spiritual, like I look at that and I'm gonna go, oh, who wants to do all that work all the time in every moment of my life? But what we'll get a lot, what he's going to give us a lot of after this is, yeah, yes, that is an infinite life task, but in every moment we have the grace of God who is going to pour out grace, uh, his love, his rewards upon all of the good works we do, all of the works of love that will make me a much not only a much lighter, easier, loving person, but also that having a self will root out having a self that is loving the neighbor in the way that we're supposed to is one that will be rooted out of that despair that he talks about, that despair that may not even be conscious but lives in our hearts. There's an author, Donald Miller, called it that needy beast of a thing that lives in my chest. He's trying to address trying to address ways existentially to move through the world with this love, that we can get more wholeness in our day-to-day moments. But let's move on to the third one. This is the one that is, you shall love the neighbor. And we'll do a couple minutes of reading and then just do talking. Yes. So in this one, this deliberation, he talks a lot about similarity and dissimilarity. And what he means is the fact that everyone we have rich people, we have poor people, we have healthy people, we have sick people, we have happy people, we have, everybody's life situation is different, but the call is equal through all of that, is a lot of what this one is talking about. So when someone feels the need to speak with one particular person, he actually needs this person. But when the need in him to speak is so great that he must speak, even if he were transported to an uninhabited desert or put in solitary confinement, when the need is so great that every human being is for him the one he wishes to speak to, then the need is a wealth. Love is a need, the deepest need, In the person in whom there is love for the neighbor, he does not need people just to have someone to love, but he needs to love people. Yet there is no pride or haughtiness in this wealth, because God is the middle term, and eternity shall binds and guides this great need, so it does not go astray and turn into pride. But there are no limits to the objects, because the neighbor is all human beings, unconditionally, every human being. Therefore, the one who truly loves the neighbor also loves his enemy. The distinction friend or enemy is a difference in the object of love, but love for the neighbor has the object that is without difference. The neighbor is the utterly unrecognizable dissimilarity between persons, or is the eternal equality before God. The enemy, too, has this equality. People think that it is impossible for a human being to love his enemy because, alas, enemies are hardly able to endure the sight of one another. Well, then, shut your eyes. Then the enemy just looks just like the neighbor. Shut your eyes and remember the commandment that you shall love. And then you love your enemy. No, then you love the neighbor because you do not see that he is your enemy. In other words, when you shut your eyes, you do not see the dissimilarities of earthly life. But enmity is also one of the dissimilarities of earthly life. Moreover, when you shut your eyes, your mind is not distracted and confused, just when you are supposed to listen to the words of the commandment. When your mind is not confused and distracted by looking at the object of your love and the dissimilarity of the object, you become all ears for the words of the commandment, as if it is spoke only to you, that you shall love the neighbor. See, when your eyes are closed and you have become all ears to the commandment, then you are on the way to the perfection, to loving, way of perfection, to loving the neighbor. It is indeed true, as pointed out earlier, where it was shown that the neighbor is the pure category of spirit, that one sees the neighbor only with closed eyes or by looking away from the dissimilarities. The sensate eyes always see the dissimilarities and look at the dissimilarities. I really like this part because Kierkegaard does a really good job of getting us to change categories of the ways that we think about things. So, and normally we think like, I need to open my eyes to people. I need to pay more attention, and which is true. You know, I mean, there's no, he would never say that's wrong, but he also takes a lot of these things that we do and talks about how they can go wrong and how we can correct them. And so, yeah, it's good to pay attention, but sometimes when we're paying attention to just, oh, this person is more like me, and so I naturally gravitate towards that. Or this person is rich and they have something I want, and I love them a little differently. Or this person is lowly and poor, and I treat them a little differently. And he's constantly trying to get you to look at people through the eyes of eternity, which is to say the same thing, the way that God looks at them. And so it's incredibly difficult for me to look at a homeless person who smells like urine and is clearly drunk and see in them a person who, before the eyes of God, has the exact same value as me. It is deeply difficult, but he is trying to get us to do that. And he's also trying to get us to look at Elon Musk with all of his wealth and idiocy and whatever you want to say as exactly the same value as me. And recognizing that these, so he's saying, if you're struggling with it, then close your eyes. Just close your eyes, do away with all the dissimilarities of the world, and simply think, who is this person? And get to the eternal core. Who is he? The answer is my neighbor. And then just stop there. Just sit in that. Who is this? Well, I can't see anything. The only thing I know is he's my neighbor. Well, if he's my neighbor, what's my duty? I know, love him. And it may seem almost childish, but it is, I think, really powerful that, okay, well, it's not, and he's not giving us exactly the, he's not saying this is a perfect, literal practice to be doing all the time, but in our hearts when we're doing, because a lot of what he's talking about is the internal inwardness and preparation for being someone who does these things actively. And that's one of it. It's okay, well, I need to be someone who has thought about the neighbor and in an abstract sense, knowing in the core of my being that everyone I meet is my neighbor, living in that, thinking about that, praying about that, so that when I go out and concretely meet another person, I see them as a neighbor and I don't see all of these things that would lead me to be able to wear off the edges on the sharpness of no, it's your neighbor, you shall. We're constantly rubbing off the sharpness of what that does because it's a knife. It cuts our lives. It cuts into everything I want to do. It cuts into my wants and my desires. It cuts into my security. It cuts deeply if we let it. But we're always trying to dull it. And I think Kierkegaard is saying, no, you need to sharpen that knife. It needs to be something that does cut, that does, and you do that in the quiet of your own heart. Yeah.
So in our diversity inclusion meeting yesterday, I think it relates a lot to what we were talking about.
Mhm.
They were talking about World War II and how this country decided we're gonna put Japanese in internment camps.
Hmm.
Anyone who was our enemy. So that would be, let's see, the Germans, the Italians, the Japanese. So what did we do? We put the Japanese in. But then we saw these Germans and Italians that looked a lot like us and had a lot of similarities, and we're like, no, let's
Yeah.
just keep it with just the
Yeah.
Japanese. And so instead of closing our eyes and they're doing it to all of them or none of them, we opened our eyes and we're like, let's just do it to those who look the most unlike us.
Yep, that's a good point. Yeah, we have a tendency to, I mean, that's something that Kierkegaard was outlining repeatedly. We have a tendency to prioritize and to prefer the things that are like us. And this is here in this one, he's going to talk about just basically how hard this is and how to deal with some of the difficulty. So it is one thing to let ideas compete with ideas. It is one thing to argue and win in a dispute. It is something else to be victorious over one's own mind when one battles in the actuality of life. However hard one contending idea presses upon another, however hard one contender presses upon another in a dispute, all this contending is still at a distance and is like shadow boxing. On the other hand, the measure of a person's disposition is this: how far is he from what he understands to what he does? How great is the distance between his understanding and his actions? Basically, we all understand the highest. A child, the simplest person, and the wisest all understand the highest and all understand the same thing because it is, if I dared to say so, the one lesson we are all assigned. But what makes the difference is whether or not we understand it at a distance, so that we do not act accordingly or close at hand, so that we act accordingly and cannot do otherwise, cannot refrain from doing it. Like Luther, who understood very close at hand what he had to do when he said, I cannot do otherwise, God help me, amen. At the distance of the quiet hour from life's and the world's confusion, every person understands what the highest is. When he departs, he has understood it. When it looks like good weather for him in life, he still understands it. But when the confusion begins, the understanding vanishes, or it becomes manifest that this understanding is at a distance. To sit in a room where everything is so quiet that one can hear a grain of sand fall and can understand the highest, that every person can do. But, to speak figuratively, to sit in the kettle the coppersmith is hammering on and then to understand the same thing, well, then one must have the understanding close at hand. Otherwise, it will become manifest the understanding was at a distance, because with the understanding, one was not present. And I think that what he's impressing here is the importance of when you are in the quiet and when you are in your prayers and in your devotion and even in your moment to moment life, there needs to be a lot of groundwork done so that I understand these things in the quiet, and then understand that the point of understanding these things in the quiet is so that when I go out in life and I see the neighbor and I see the neighbor in need, I don't forget it. That I don't just, and I think and it goes back to Judith's sermon as well. Like, I was just thinking this when she was giving it, like, especially when she's talking about the dog, the dog knows calm. He knows it. He absolutely knows it. And I take him outside and there's a squirrel and he acts like I'm not even speaking English. I didn't even look at me. And it's because that he's like, oh yeah, I know. But the point for Kierkegaard is you need to know it in your bones. It needs to not be mental. And the only way you know something in your bones is if you have worked it into your being. The only way that comes out of you, the only way that you do these works of love effortlessly, they just, and I think we've all come into contact with saints, with people in our lives that you're just like, and to be frank, most of them aren't under 60. Like they just aren't. because for 30 to 40 adult years of their life, they've done these things. They've done this practice of becoming someone it's just who they are. And we say that, oh, some people do nice things sometimes, but that's just who he is. That's just who she is. That's what Kierkegaard is trying to do, is get us to do this daily work in which, there's no more thinking or no more, oh, what should I do? I just know what to do because I've lived and I've thought about this while I'm doing my dishes. I've thought about this while I'm sitting at home doing whatever, tying some flies, and my mind is not, my hands are busy, but my mind is also busy on something else. Like, I do, but I like that it's easy to do this every once in a while in a quiet study. But hey, when you get out in the world and there's awful things happen to this person, or there's this sudden need, and you just, oh man, I don't want to. That's not my neighbor. It's not consciously how that happens in our heads, but that's what we do. This is the reasons I'll give real quick for why I'm not going to treat this person like my neighbor. And yeah.
Okay, but I get all that, I get, with homeless and that's easier, but what if somebody's like, you're spewing things of hatred and things that you really disagree
I was
with?
thinking that.
How do you treat that though?
So hold on to that question, because that is, so number one, it's a great question. Number two, that is something that I think he will deal with in one of the ones we're going to do, but also that's just not what he's doing here. But he does want those questions to come up in your head. It's a reason why this is first. This more abstract stuff is first, because I guess the way I would put it is, only when you are recognizing that, oh, love is a duty and this you shall is a real serious thing, that's the only time questions like that come up. But he wants you to get to this place first so that you're asking those questions. Does that make sense? And he's not going to answer them in the ones we're doing today, but he will. He'll wrap a lot of this in more concrete stuff. But it's a fantastic question.
And it's exactly the question.
We're all
Yeah,
thinking
yeah,
about.
yeah. And that's he's consciously trying to get you to ask that. Kierkegaard is a smart writer. He's gonna there's a lot of times when you're reading him, especially this one, where you're like, well, dude, what am I supposed to do with that? And you almost it's just rising up in you. And you're like, come on, and that's he's trying to get you there. He wants you there because he wants you hungry for this concreteness that he's going to give, because he wants that to be an existential way that we live. I want to be hungry once I know, like, oh, well, this is my duty. Well, then how do I do my duty? That's he wants you in that existential place of, how do I do my duty, Lord? He's trying to get you there. It's actively, intentionally what he's trying to do. So there's one more I was looking for. And then yes, okay. We'll close with this one. It's the last words of, I believe, the discourse. Oh, the true devotion, however, is to give up all claims on life, all claims, power and honor and advantage, all claims. But the happiness of erotic love and friendship is among the very greatest claims. That is, to give up all claims in order to understand what an enormous claim God and eternity have upon the individual himself. The one who will accept this understanding is on the point of loving the neighbor. A life of a human being begins with the illusion that a long, long time and a whole world lie before him in the distance, begins with the foolhardy delusion that he has ample time for many claims. The poet is the eloquent and enthusiastic confidant of this foolhardy but beautiful delusion. But when a person in the infinite transformation discovers the eternal itself so close to life that there is not the distance of one single claim, of one single evasion, of one single excuse, of one single moment of time from what he, in this instant, in this second, in this holy moment, shall do, then he is on the way to becoming a Christian. It is a mark of childishness to say, me wants, me. A mark of adolescence to say, I, and I, and I. The sign of maturity and the devotion of the eternal is to will to understand that this I has no significance unless it becomes the you to whom eternity incessantly speaks and says, you shall, you shall, you shall. Youthfulness wants to be the only I in the whole world. Maturity is to understand this you personally, even if it were not even addressed to a single other person. You shall love the neighbor. Oh, my listener, it is not you to whom I'm speaking. It is I to whom eternity says, you shall. So I like that Kierkegaard is saying, look, even this writing that I'm writing is not addressed. I'm not writing it to you. It's addressed to me. I'm writing to myself. And I do like that and this gets to your question. He says, okay, the person who understands all of this is on the verge of being a Christian. There's a lot more because we're talking about concepts and we're talking about ways we're talking about the ways that faith should orient our heart. We're talking about the ways that a proper self should be oriented. But to be a Christian, you have to do works of love concretely for neighbors that actually exist in your world. And that's where we're going next. That's where we got one other one that's a little conceptual, and then we're gonna have 3 or 4 straight that are just gonna be concrete. Love covers a multitude of sins. Your duty is to love the neighbor in front of you, like concrete, actual, stuff that is gonna get to those questions. But sorry, this is a little long. But questions, thoughts, concerns? I've talked a little bit much today, sorry.
No, I think just knowing that question, because that was
Mhm.
definitely in my head, so knowing that that's coming up is good.
Yeah, the main thing to get out of these is just, the depth of just the ways that the neighbor love being a command and a shall just seeps into every way we think about it. That's the main thing to get out of this, because he's going to refer back to it, but it's not going to be the conceptual, he's not going to keep hammering that again and again. We're going to talk about actually, because it's not called Concepts of Love. And it's a big book, and we're only like here. So the rest of it is works of love, which is, and he is going to talk about a lot of inward works of love, like to love the other. He has a whole deliberation on on the work of love and recollecting the dead, and thinking, literally, the neighbor is also people who are dead. But so it goes concretely, abstractly, but we're gonna get much more into, get our hands dirty a little bit. But let me pray so we can get out of here. I'm sorry for keeping it so long. Holy God, we come before you grateful for our minds, for the way that you have given us hearts that are to be shaped by your character and your being. We thank you that our being itself is literally given to us by sharing in yours. You who are love, you are the basis of all existence. You are the fundament and the foundation for what we are, and we thank you that is love. We pray that you would use these few weeks we have left reading to form us in ways that we would be more equipped to do works of love in the ways that your Son has called us to do. We beg mercy when we fail, and we thank you for the grace that allows us to do these good works. Pray this all in your name. Amen. Thanks, guys. Sorry again for being a little wordy today.
And I retired, I can tell you, those people who are just out of school, maybe that's not the case, but I have to read not every sentence, but you know what I do?
No, I do.
Actually reread.
Yeah.
What he's
And I said it last week, but that's why he writes that way. Literally.
Although they wrote Beowulf like that too.
Well, sort of. Yeah, that's because that's Middle English. But no, he writes in a way that it is not easy to drift off. And that's he does it intentionally. So that, yeah, say like he's gonna, you know, part of why he keeps twisting, you know, that ball to give you different parts and different parts and different views is to help you, you know, to help you see all those different sides. But another reason he does it is because if he just gave you all of one chunk understanding, then you'd be, oh, I got it, move on. But he's trying to get you to read and think in the same way that he wants you to live, which is moment to moment. Oh, I've got to keep doing this, keep doing the work, keep doing the work. It's almost a microcosm of, you know, his writing is almost a microcosm of the way he's going to actually want you to live, to be, if that makes any sense.
I have nothing to do with this.
Luckily,